This time of the year in Johannesburg, a lot of the galleries get closed and artists come up with rather intriguing and fantastic spaces to go and showcase their work. And this time around, we pick up an exhibition called Scars, the Signatures of Our Being, which is being exhibited at Odd Cafe on 116 Greenway Road in Greenside in Johannesburg until the 31st of January 2013. And joining us on the line is the artist, the photographer, Sizakele Marutlulle. Za, good afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. I will tell you, when I found out about this exhibition, it took me back to a film that I watched. This is, my word, 10 years ago maybe, that was about scars and people having a very almost odd sexual fascination with scars.
I'm afraid my exhibition is a lot more, is a lot lighter than that, but the subject matter, I guess, is still the same. But yeah, it's always going to be an interesting area to probe.
No doubt.
Fascinated, yeah.
Tell me about how you, I suppose, got fascinated with scars and made the decision to put together this exhibition.
I have a scar. It runs across my back. It is deep purple in color. And every time people see it, ask me whether I have an abusive husband, at which point I have to disappoint them by saying, no, I don't, but it's a scar that was incurred at birth. And having lived my life trying to cover it up because I was embarrassed and concerned and annoyed at just the explanations, I got to a point where I thought, but what if there are other people who are going through the same journey? And what if, more importantly, there are other people who have emotional scars that also don't get expression because we cover them up because society has led us to believe that those of us with scars are damaged. So this work was about reframing that whole understanding and just saying, next time you see somebody with a scar, rather than impose your own judgment on it, just engage, strike a conversation, and you'll be surprised where you might end up, because many of the people we showcase in the work have integrated those scars into their lives, so they don't wear them as signs of damage, but rather as warrior marks, because they show that you've lived a life and overcome something.
When I was 10 years old, I was bitten in the head, in my face actually, by my neighbor's dog on New Year's Eve. Was going to fetch some bottles for ginger beer and stuff. And so I've had a scar on my face for the last 10 years. And it's quite interesting actually, because obviously, you know, the first couple of years, maybe the first 10 years I had it, it was quite prominent and people saw it all the time. But in the last 10 years of my life, often people I've interacted with for months on end would say, oh, by the way, I never noticed you had a scar. It does become part of one's sort of life and routine and everyday, and sometimes even identity, hey?
Yes, it does. And also, you know what I also find incredible about this body of work is that people came to share their stories because I was comfortable in making myself vulnerable by sharing my own. And in that sharing is also just another opportunity for society to just say, perhaps the wounds we're carrying inside of us are wounds that can find expression and wounds from which we can heal if we trust another person and choose to share those things. So for people who've been in your life and haven't noticed the scar on your face, essentially they're saying you are more than the scar to us. And that's what I was trying to do with the work, is to get all of us to just engage on a human level and to say you are more than your scar. You're this wonderful bundle of contradictions, beautiful and complex all at once, but human at core.
One of the subject matters, in fact, you have in this exhibition is Precious, who's quite familiar to a lot of the listeners because she's a media personality, isn't she? I mean, she presents a television show on one of the SABC channels, and she tells an interesting story of how she came to, I suppose, resonate with her scars.
Yeah, and she was wonderful because for somebody who works in the visual space to integrate something that is also so visible, it was, for me, heartwarming to have her say, when people say I'm beautiful, I believe them because I know I am, because I know that my beauty isn't the sum total of my physical appearance. A lot of it has to do with my own spiritual generosity and the things that I bring to life as a decent human being. So we have a combination of people who are recognizable and people who aren't. And what I was trying to do with the work was focus more on the scar rather than the face, because you would know this when you go into a gallery and there are pictures with faces, we engage with the eyes and we forget to look at everything else. But by inverting the relationship and just making the scar the hero, in difficult ways, and I understand the work isn't soft, it's not, it's jarring and it's organic and it's textured and it's layered. And it was done that way deliberately because life is that way. But at the end of it is a hopeful and aspirational note that says we are more than that which scars us,
It certainly shows in the work. I mean, a lot of the pictures that I've got in front of me, for example, have stories of the various individuals and subject matters that you've got. But the picture, just on its own, without the story, I would be able to pick up on those elements and those textures and those levels out there. I want to ask, when you were having conversations with shall we call them your models, some of them, obtained those scars, as in your case, through birth process, something that they could do nothing about. Some of them, obviously, through injuries when they were young, they were playing about and they injured themselves. And some of them through quite violent and traumatic experiences. I imagine that each one of those groupings of people then reacted differently to their scar, and obviously had to go through a very different healing journey for them to identify with their scar.
Yeah, particularly for those who got, I think, scars that came from a difficult place. So it's an uncle who tries to do ununcle-y like things, if I can make up a new word in English called ununcle-y, but an uncle who's trying to behave in an inappropriate manner to a 7-year-old girl at the time, and her running out of the house with a ball of fire trying to save herself, to people who were scarred over a fight. Fighting over a woman or fighting over the price of alcohol that they don't even remember what got the fight started. Whatever the source of the scar, there was always a reflection. Yes, there were deeper reflections for those who felt the scars had affected their psyche. So there was a lot more work and a lot more pain in the sharing, but also a lot more relief after people had shared. I did show a lot of respect because I recognized that some people were sharing with me things they hadn't told anyone else. So I wanted to preserve the dignity of their story, the dignity of their humanity, but also in some way find an avenue to share their story so that another person somewhere could find the strength to overcome. And that's why they were willing to come forward, because their sentiment was, if my story can help one more person feel special, complete, and precious, then I'm happy to share.
And that's what you're going to take away from this exhibition, showing at the Odd Cafe, 116 Greenway Road in Greenside in Johannesburg, until the 31st of January. It's titled Scars, the Signatures of Our Being, and the subtitle, actually, which I like, it's A Journey into Healing. Sizakele Marutlulle, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.